Do you feel like you're working too hard to coordinate a resonant sound or to find ring in your voice? Do you feel like you're supporting well, but it's not translating to the sound output you feel like could be there? You're having trouble understanding how to efficiently and smoothly crescendo, or you're running out of gas before you get to the ends of phrases. So what if I told you these issues might not be a breath support issue at all, but the answer lies at the back of your tongue? In this video, I'll show you how one tiny coordination, narrowing the back of your tongue into your pharynx, Carrie Obert calls this anterior-posterior narrowing, how this can free your sound, create ring, and help your breath provision last longer. Hey there, I'm Dan Callaway. I teach musical theater, voice, and vocal pedagogy at Boston Conservatory in Berkeley. I've spent the last 15 plus years helping singers work on Broadway, national tours, regionally and around the world. And this is the second video in a vocal tract shaping series. Last time we explored how your larynx position affects your sound and breath. Today, we're heading just north of that into the pharynx and how the back of your tongue affects your efficiency so you can choose the manner of airflow and sound you want for the phrases you want to sing. So what is anterior-posterior narrowing? You can experience it if you just swallow. As you swallow, notice how the tip of your tongue anchors against the bottom teeth and the back of the tongue moves back into the pharynx. It can move in more than one direction simultaneously. And when the back of your tongue moves back toward the pharyngeal wall, it narrows the acoustic channel there above your vocal folds. That narrowing changes how air, therefore sound waves, behave. Therefore, your breath movement and amplification. You're creating a very helpful acoustic bottleneck that boosts sound wave energy, that can make your breath use more efficient, and can also increase volume if that's what you want to do. This shape change creates something I talked about in the last video, inertive reactance. You're creating a cozy resistance for the moving air, and that has a helpful effect on your acoustic environment. You get more vibrational bang for your breath buck. If this is already connecting some helpful dots for you, I want you to know that we're building a place where you can go deeper on all of this. Inside the resource library, there are guided tools that walk you through how to understand, find, and coordinate your own resonance. If you're experimenting with this right now and want help figuring out how to feel it in your own body, there's support for you there, so check that out in the description. So let's try this together. I actually want you to isolate the back of the tongue and see how it can independently move. So I'm going to do a variation on an exercise I learned from Renee Souza in Los Angeles. You're going to inhale and stick your tongue out at the same time, like this. So I'm inhaling and sticking my tongue out. So this is a good exercise in and of itself because it teaches multidirectionality with your tongue moving out and breath moving in. So you stick your tongue out and inhale, and then you gently bite down, and then you hum like this. Again, I'll go. Again. So find a comfortable pitch for you to hum, like, and then you want to make sure your tongue is really relaxed and soft. The bite is just a gentle reminder for you to soften the tongue. So I say it's like a mama cat picking up her kitten, the kitten just goes limp. So you feel your tongue soft as you continue to hum. Notice the vibrating air is moving through your pharynx and out your nose. Now, while you still bite the tongue and you keep the front of the tongue between your teeth, I want you to scoot the back of your tongue into your pharynx and see what the result is. So notice that you can still bite the whole front half of your tongue and you're still able to move the back body into your pharynx. And what is the result you notice? I'm getting a pretty good acoustic boost from this. It's pretty crazy, the interconnected capabilities of the bundle of muscles that make up your tongue. And I'm not intentionally crescendoing that. That is just coming from tongue movement if you hear a little boost in the sound. Now you can take this coordination and play with it with your tongue inside your mouth. So let the tip of the tongue rest here along the front bottom teeth. and then sing a scale with the tongue coordinations inside sustained pitches. So we could choose an ah vowel for this. So let's just go ah. And so you can see on that sustained pitch, when I scooted my tongue backward, there was an acoustic change. I'd also encourage you to go ahead and feel coordinations that you probably wouldn't want to use for singing, just so you can clearly differentiate what you want the tongue to do and what you don't want it to do. So go ahead and bring the tongue back and down into like a swallowy position so you can feel what that does. And notice that also has an acoustic effect. Ah, and notice the difference between that and ah. There's reactive inertance in both of them for sure, but that swallowy one also creates a sense of choked off, blocked energy. But who knows? I mean, you may be tapped to play a character who's choked with rage and holds his muscular energy as they speak and try to attack the world with their words. You might play that character one day. I often say go ahead and just let the tension or static engagement that wants to happen have a full expression in your body. You'll probably find out what it's trying so hard to protect you from. And once you hear it out, it usually figures out the scenario pretty quickly. But with the permission to have these experiences, you can then start to find your own balance of the tongue apex gently nestled behind your front teeth, and the back body of the tongue scooting gently back into the pharynx for an acoustic narrowing benefit. You'll literally feel the tip of the tongue sort of anchoring gently forward as the back of the tongue. And I like to sort of imagine it going back and slightly upwardly diagonal. That sort of keeps the acoustic chamber just above the larynx nice and free. I mentioned in the last video about the larynx how I used a relatively high laryngeal position to kind of berry fake my way through the role of Emile Debec in South Pacific. I didn't understand this anterior-posterior narrowing concept at the time. I knew about twang and what we then called the aryepiglottic sphincter, only now to realize that there is no sphincter there. So yes, the epiglottis and the arytenoid cartilages can come closer together, but recent research has shown that it's not necessarily causational to brighter color. Correlation, yes, probably, but this more general idea of back to front narrowing is what we're realizing is more accurate and useful now. So if I'd had this understanding, I probably would have let my larynx hang out a little lower and added some anterior-posterior narrowing. So if I'd done that with a medium to low larynx with no narrowing, it would have sounded like some enchanted evening, you may see a stranger. And how I ended up doing it with the higher larynx was, some enchanted evening, you may see a stranger. And how I would do it today, I would lower the larynx but with narrowing. So I'll make the change mid-phrase. Actually, let me first demo with the tongue bite so you can see how you can experiment with phrases. So I'll go. So you can hear the acoustic shift when I'm able to scoot the tongue back. Now I'll sing it and I'll indicate when I narrow. So this is with the lower larynx. All right. So some, there's a higher larynx. I'll lower him down a little bit. Some, that feels comfy, okay? Some enchanted evening, you may see a stranger. So, and for another comparison, here's high larynx. Some enchanted evening. And now here's mid-low larynx with narrowing. Some enchanted evening, you may see a stranger. So I would go with the more low frequency neighborhood of the medium to low larynx now with the anterior posterior narrowing to add amplification and general shimmer. You can also hear how a lot of baritones get very tempted by this coordination and take it beyond the point of balance, moving the tongue back and down and over-muscling the coordination. So it could, some enchanted evening. So, to me, that's too much muscle. But I always like to think of the voice having a balance of energies, like what Carl Jung talked about with the anima and the animus. The animus being the enacting energy, the impulse to move sound out and away, and the very powerful and receptive anima, the opening and receiving, the act of hospitality in singing. If either of these energies begin to have a disproportionate influence, you can feel it. So become aware of that, the generous, generative outflow of communication and the welcoming, receptive openness to music and the moment. Now you can take this tool and try nearly any vocalese while employing it just a simple vowel series. So if you have like ah, and then oh, or ooh. And just notice how your sound changes without moving any other levers. It's a powerful thing to understand, and this gives you a lot of evidence of your own vocal agency. So you can shape your instrument intentionally, understanding certain shapes create certain sonic outcomes. And as you'll find out, there's no one magic bullet tongue position or place. Your tongue is in as many coordinations as there are consonants and vowels to sing. So the right one is the one that authentically represents the identity and style you're bringing through in the song that creates the amount of vocal efficiency you need for that phrase. And sometimes you'll choose to make a very inefficient sound. I was working on the song Cry by an artist that will screw up my YouTube check if I say the name, but he sings with a ton of audible air, and that requires that there's very little anterior posterior narrowing. I think it's something like it sounds like, it's making you cry every time you give your love to me this way. So that's an intentionally inefficient sound. But like I was saying, there's a great deal of vulnerability and intimacy in the tone there because the tube is very open. So it's like there's a wide openness to it that's ironic, since the song's about the fact that the singer can't be faithfully intimate. But use those images and tools to play around and see what you find, of course. And listen to your favorite singers and see if you can ID what they're doing with anterior-posterior narrowing. So we've got laryngeal position and the narrowing of the tongue into the pharynx. In the next video, we'll talk about how managing your pharyngeal constriction has all kinds of effects on your acoustic outcomes, how it's different from this narrowing with your tongue we just talked about, and what that can mean for your resonance and breath. And you can check out the full vocal tract shaping playlist as it's being built below. And if you're not subscribed, you can do that and get alerts for when the next one in this series becomes available. And again, if you want structured support that makes the systems of your own voice procedural memory second nature to you, practice tools, deep dives, Q&As with me, you'll find all of that in the resource library. It's still in beta for the summer right now, so I'd love to have you there. We're building a singer-centered library and a growing, encouraging place. And if you missed the previous video on the larynx, you can grab that here. And as always, say it with me if you want. There's only one me, and somebody would love to hear the story that only I can sing. Love much. Now go sing.